Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, potential prison problems. Also, the V Team takes a look at the Republican Caucus agenda. And will we finally see promised ethics reform?
No! 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 No!
What? No!
No!
Not even a maybe? Kinda? A little bit? Nah. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and I'm joined today by Santa's elves.
Merry Christmas!
Don't tell Roy more Santa's elves are here. A little old for him, I guess.
Jack, I like that tie.
This one is actually paid for.
Oh, you paid one off.
Had it several years.
That's very nice, very nice. Well, Christmas Day is here and the new year is almost upon us, and nothing has changed in Alabama politics. It is as bad this year as it was last year.
And will probably continue to be the same.
Well, yeah, we're coming into an election year.
Yeah.
Which means nothing will get done.
No, absolutely not. You know, we want to start off today by talking about the prisons. You know, we've had prison population problems for years, decades actually, and now we're under a federal mandate to provide adequate or constitutional health care, mental health care for prisoners. And instead of going out and finding the best firm they could find, at least from our standpoint, the Ivey administration, under the direction of Jeff Dunn, the commissioner, not Dunn, the commissioner, they've chosen this company called Wexler. Now, Beth, they have a lot of problems with fulfilling their contracts, but recently they had some problems down in Mississippi. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, there's like a civil suit for, was it bribery in Mississippi?
Yeah, bribery.
Yeah, you can't do that, especially when you're dealing with taxpayer money. And I mean, our prison systems are abhorrent right now anyway. So if you're going to start looking at getting out from under federal control to run our prison systems the way they need to be done, we don't need to have backroom deals. We need to actually do this above board and get things done the right way.
So what does Alabama do in this situation? They go and hire, they're talking about hiring a company that has already been fired from several states for not fulfilling the mental health portion of the contract.
Well, they're certainly under scrutiny, and courts have come back, Susan, and said they didn't meet the standards of care that they were supposed to. But this is what we chose, Jack, because they're the lowest bidder.
Lowest bidder or somebody's getting the biggest kickback. I mean, we know Alabama probably has nothing to do with quality. It has everything to do with who's getting rich off of it.
You know, Susan, Jack makes a good point. We've looked, and Wexford, which is the name of the company, they're out of Pennsylvania, they do not have a registered lobbyist in Alabama. Now, the other companies do have registered lobbyists, well-known lobbyists, but we can't find the Wexford lobbyist.
The key word there is registered lobbyist.
From
what I understand, there's a law firm involved here that's out of South Carolina, but they haven't bothered to register in the state of Alabama, and I believe that's a little bit illegal.
Well, it may be, it may not be. There is a gentleman named John Osment, not Peppermint, but Osment, which is what you ought to have in prison is Osment, but that he has been over here from South Carolina meeting with Jeff Dunn and they like each other. They're military guys, they hit it off, and supposedly they tell me, Jack, that Jeff Dunn is the best lobbyist they've ever had for this Wexford company.
Well, maybe Jeff Dunn's making some money off of
Who
the
knows?
of the whole situation.
He's a lot like Ralph Cramden. You know, he was a bus driver, and he's kind of a joke.
And again, it's the same thing. They're costing us, like with stars and all of that, they're costing us millions of dollars by saving a few thousand. Because it's going to come back, we're going to get lawsuits, or any number of things can happen if they don't do this right.
Beth, doesn't this sound like stuff that Rebecca Mason and Robert Bentley used to cook up? I mean, really?
It does. It sounds like it. I know we expected a little better from the Ivey administration, so I hope that they look at this because, when you do have a standard of care in our prison systems, that opens the state up to lawsuits, huge lawsuits, and we just can't afford that right now. We don't have the money for it. It's easier if you just do it right the first time. And one, we take care of people who need to be taken care of, but also we don't have to litigate all of these damages.
Right, and when people enter the prison system, I don't care what our Republican friends say, they do not lose their humanity.
Yeah, the Constitution still applies in our prisons.
I want to jump over here to Jack. I know one of your favorite subjects of the day. The Republican Caucus released their 2018 agenda. What do you think?
Flag, family, and country, not roads, kids, and education. Or
They
prison.
couldn't even find a third F, like flag, family,
and
and
country.
freedom or something.
Yeah.
Like come on, I can do this better, guys.
Now listen, we all love our veterans.
Flag,
The
family,
whole
and F.
whole agenda is pandering to veterans, and that's great. We have a lot of military veterans in Alabama, many of whom have been forgotten. But we cannot neglect or continue to neglect, under the Republican tutelage, all the things they promised to fix that they've never addressed. It's pitiful.
Right.
Got a bunch of old people running the state. We need some new blood. And if Doug Jones' election, not that Doug is young, he's 62 or 3, but
He's young
we have a
relative
bunch
to
of
some of
old
these.
people running the state. Where's the new blood? On both sides.
Well, I tell you where the new blood is, and right now, if the Republican Party and Kay Ivey is not paying attention, Walt Maddox just got running room. Like you said, we need one more second on the clock. I mean, he got that room with Doug Jones. Doug Jones was not a strong candidate, was not a strong campaign, but the Republicans folded. The Democrats stood up and they went for it. The Young Dems, a group of black Democrats, all went for it, and they proved it could get done. I really now see that Doug Jones has set an example, at least the Democrats had, that they can actually win an election, Susan.
And this weak caucus agenda that they've put out is the perfect thing to run against. It's an election year. The Republicans don't want to make anybody mad. The Democrats can take just this weak agenda and say, look, they're not getting anything done. Here's our plan. It's perfect. It gives them a perfect opening.
Yeah, and I don't know, Beth, how far this goes down ballot. But if you look at the up ballot, there are people who woke up Wednesday morning after voting either Democrat or voting somewhere else on the ticket that said, I'm not dead. I didn't get kicked out of the party, and God doesn't hate me.
Right. Turns out you're still good if you're a Democrat. It's all right.
Well, you can at least
even if
vote
you're-
for one.
Right. Well,
Even if you're a Republican and voted for a Democrat or wrote it in, you're still living.
right. Turns out, yeah, the gates didn't open up and you fell in. But, I mean, like I said, this is it's red meat for the Republican base. They're going into an election year. They don't want to do anything sticky or tricky. And if the Democrats are smart, they'll do what Doug Jones did and say, forget those hot button issues. Let's talk about kitchen table issues. Let's talk about what our public schools are doing. Let's talk about the number of roads you can't drive a school bus across in this state.
I love
It's
my
ridiculous.
Democrat friends, but I think Doug Jones' election was an anomaly.
Oh, I do too.
Perfect storm.
Well, but
Tired
I'm saying we
old
still
white
need to be
guy
talking
running.
about those
But I mean,
issues.
it gives them some hope to find some good candidates and run them like Walt
Listen,
Maddox.
if you'd had Walt Maddox or Dario Melton instead of this guy, Doug Jones, man, it's got to be there for 20 years because he'd figure out how to navigate
Well, the
it.
state GLP's in shambles.
Oh, good Lord. All right, Jack, did you eat your Wheaties this morning?
No, it was razor soup.
We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Merry Christmas. Bah humbug. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, Congress, the Republican Congress has failed to act to fund CHIPS, the program that offers health care to poor and moderate income Alabamians or people around the nation. Here in Alabama, 84,000 children could lose their health care as early as February. Isn't it kind of a sad irony of politics that here in a season where we're celebrating giving and the birth of Christ, that the letters are going to go out saying, I'm sorry, we're not going to fund your children's health care any longer?
It's terrible. I mean, we're talking about 84,000 children statewide. They're not going to have any health insurance. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., they're worried about, pro-life issues and all of this. They're not concentrating on the children we already have. Thank goodness for our folks over at Medicaid here in the state of Alabama. I want to give them kudos. They saved the money. They were anticipating something like this coming. So we do have a net until February, where most other states don't.
Jack, we can all agree that entitlement programs need to be addressed. This is sort of a program that has been a great success for our state. We adopted it early. I mean, you got to think, kids, they were born into poverty. They didn't do anything to get there.
You can't, poor people who were born that way can't be blamed. I mean, they have to be, they have no voice, they have no help. And I agree with Susan that at least our folks here had enough foresight to have a little money to take care of these children.
Yeah. Well, and Mac McCutcheon and Gerald Dial and Steve Klaus and several others have come out, Beth, and said, look, we're going to find a way.
All the old guys that I was just cussing, yeah.
Yeah, well, they might have children that need health care.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
They're
Or
Children's
grandchildren.
children. I mean, they're children's children.
Grandchildren at that point.
I'm sure they don't need any money, but you know what I mean? They understand kids.
Yeah, and like Jack said, we're talking about children in the state who, they have done nothing wrong. It's easy to sit here and talk about entitlement reform and, well, these people should try to get jobs, or they should do this, or they should do that. We are talking about children right now, children who may very well die as a result of not having the proper treatment and diagnoses that they need to grow up to be healthy and happy. So if we're going to make it where kids can't get health insurance based on their parents' decisions, then we need to go ahead and just let them go off and get to work and get some benefits while they're at it. Have 7-year-olds hauling briefcases into the office or something, because I don't think we can put kids in this position. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and I agree. And again, that children didn't do anything wrong, and their parents, for whatever reason, they're poor. People are, there are plenty of us been born poor, but we were given an opportunity.
Plenty of people who had opportunities who fell on hard times.
Yeah, right.
It can happen to any of us.
And just because these children don't have health insurance doesn't mean they're not going to show up in emergency rooms.
Right.
Okay, so and it just continues to spiral.
Well, the thing about it to me is, look, if you're pro-life, that doesn't stop at the womb's edge.
Right.
It continues that you're pro-life on every issue, especially, do we want these kids to grow up unhealthy and sick?
Even with that too, these kids are going to be going into the classroom and the Sunday school room with all the other kids. So if they don't have the health insurance to go get antibiotics when they get sick, they're going to be sitting next to your kid, getting your kid sick. And now, this affects everybody.
It's a vicious circle, but Shirley, I think our leadership here has come together, Democrat, Republicans, said we're going to fix this problem one way or the other.
We'll be watching.
Something that the national folks can't do. Our friend Gerald Dial has been working for 5 years to bring a spaceport.
And Jim McClendon.
Spaceport to Alabama. And what it is spaceport can, it's for future travel. They can travel to outer space and they land and they go out again, and it's pretty cool.
Sounds very Jetsons-y.
It is. It's kind of like an airport for rockets.
Yeah, but we don't want to build an airport for rockets.
We build a garage.
We want to build a garage.
Yeah.
Really, actually, we're bidding for one, and it's likely that we'll get it because of the space program here. But we do, Alabama wants to be the service station for all the space vehicles that take wealthy people and other people into outer space.
That's one of the reasons they're looking so hard at the workforce development plans. This has been in the works for 5 years now, and it's finally coming to the point that we're going to actually get to the paperwork to be able to submit this. Now, that's probably going to take a little while, but nevertheless, it's pretty exciting.
But can you not see this, Jack? From outer space, they can see a sign that says Gomer and Goobers.
So this is going to be like a a service facility for
Rockets.
A
For
rocket
Passenger
quickie
rocket.
lube.
Okay.
Passenger. I mean, in other words, look, so this thing is going to happen. You've got rockets that are going to take off from, say, LA, and they're going to fly people into space, and they're going to hang out and have space cocktails and all that stuff. And then when the rocket has to be fixed, or the vehicle has to be fixed,
oil
they're
change.
gonna-
Oil change,
oil
maintenance,
change,
all that.
tires. They're going to pull it down into Alabama, and we go, golly, that's a very special rocket there, Mr. Homer Simpson. Whatever. Let's move on to something else.
Yeah, let's please move on to.
We got about 2 minutes left. Well, I don't think you appreciate the future, Jack. We've had this task force that came together about juvenile justice reform. They've come up with some great ideas. The Republicans and Democrats are on board with this. Beth, this could make a big difference for young men and women who get in trouble at an early age.
Right. Well, I mean, our criminal justice system being what it is, in a lot of cases, money buys justice. And so kids who come from, especially families that don't have the money to pay for Johnny Cochran-style lawyers, they get thrown into the system, and it just becomes this self-fulfilling cycle. And so what this plan is trying to do is take those kids out of the prison system itself and put them into county-run facilities where they can kind of get rehabilitated instead of just punished.
Well, the drug courts have done really well as far as keeping nonviolent offenders, first-time offenders in drugs. That's been very successful. So maybe if they take that kind of model and apply it here, it could work.
Well, Jack, it's going to save a lot of money
Yeah.
if it works, so
Well-
almost $40 million.
Well, the problem with our prisons is we would like to think they're reformatory, but they're punitive. And there needs to be, when someone goes into the system as a nonviolent offender who's done some bad things, that they come out with a chance of being rehabbed. And that's really not what our prison system, juvenile or not, has been in the last, golly, so many years.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we moved away. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jack.
no, but I'm just saying, hopefully, this juvenile justice reform will
It can make a
be a step
difference.
in the right
Yeah.
direction.
Well, what we've done over the years is we had this idea that prison was a reform place where we could help
Right.
people change their lives. Well, the only thing we helped them do is to learn how to be better crooks. And so we've learned how to be tough on crime. But the question that we've been asking for the last 6 years, Beth, is how do we get to be smart on crime?
Right. Well, and part of that goes back to this mental health issue of, a lot of people who especially are recurring offenders, they have some sort of mental health issue or even just psychological trauma that causes this. So fixing that issue, for one, especially with our young people, if you're a young person in a criminal activity, you probably don't have the most sound home environment. You could probably benefit from some of this. And then also making sure people have their education so that when they come out, they don't have to resort to criminal activity. They can make an honest living and do things on the up and up.
Right. It's a vicious cycle. We are appreciative that our lawmakers are looking at how to break this, because if not, we're going to lose another generation of young people to crime and punishment. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Food security, healthy citizens, and a strong Alabama economy. It all starts with our local family farms. I'm State Senator Tom Watley, and I'm proud of my work to support our local agriculture industry by cutting taxes, pushing to eliminate the overly burdensome regulations, and ensuring our agricultural entrepreneurs have the access they need to a skilled and legal workforce. When we work together to boost all of our Alabama, we're boosting our family farms, and we've got more work to do. I'm running for re-election because I want to go back to Montgomery and give the farmers the tools they need to expand, thrive, and continue to serve as the main driver for our economy. I'm Senator Tom Watley, and I humbly ask for your vote on Election Day.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, even after Mike Hubbard's conviction, Luther Strange, Matt Hart, Alice Martin came forward with a package that would strengthen and clarify the ethics reform. As soon as Luther Strange got appointed U.S. Senator. He went to Washington. Steve Marshall came in, and Marshall took a big old shovel, dug a hole, and put ethics reform down at the bottom of it, and then covered it with all the campaign contributions he's getting from the big mules and lobbyists.
He absolutely did. And I know he doesn't want to deal with it. It's a big topic. A lot of people are backing away from it, but it's something we're going to have to address. The ethics laws are way too non-specific in that even lobbyists don't know where their limits are or what they can and cannot do. I mean, they're going to have to, whether they like it or not, they're going to have to clarify these laws.
Well, the court just defined them. I mean, these laws that Hubbard broke are very defined
those
now.
are.
But
Right.
what we need, Beth, is some clarity on these other issues, but also these people just see nobody but Hubbard ever convicted.
Right. Well, and remember, too, we saw almost as many not guilties for Hubbard as we saw guilties. So what we saw were a bunch of ways that you could skirt these ethics laws. And now we have a roadmap for how to convict on it, but we also have a roadmap for how to get around it,
Well,
the way that he got out of a lot of those.
Cost wrote the whole playbook on that one.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of this, if we could just get better guidance, but that's not going to happen coming out of Steve Marshall. It's just not going to go there.
Out of the threesome that came up with that, Luther, Alice Martin, and Hart. Hart is the only one that's still left there, Jack.
Yeah.
And from what we're hearing from outside, people are telling us that,
Steve Marshall says, ethics, we don't need no stinking ethics.
That's right. And he's saying, white collar crime unit, stand down.
Listen, there's so much white collar crime in this state. I mean, there's so many people that could have gone to jail in the last 10 years since the Republicans took over because they figured out the system and they skirted it and they pushed right up to the edge, and some of them went over the edge with contracts.
Phil Williams with his city municipal contracts.
Senator Phil Williams.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, never.
By the way, is not running again because.
Ooh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Well,
But the fact that these people are not getting prosecuted tells me that Steve Marshall is pulling resources from the special prosecution
either that or
division.
they're so busy over there they don't have time, and it could be partly that.
I don't trust Steve
Well,
Marshall.
if they're
any
that
further
busy,
than I can throw
then he should supply them with more resources, more personnel.
How many people got indicted from this cleanup, cover-up in North Birmingham?
Well,
That's all
not.
federal, though, right?
Yeah, that's well. There's just two and just invited.
Well, I mean,
indicted
I'm
on
just
state.
saying, it's all around us.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Well, and you remember what they said in Love, actually. Love is all around us, too, Jack.
well, and we, because we didn't have enough money, the court reporter took a year and a half to get the transcript of the Hubbard trial, which has been on appeal for over a year. Let's get going. Let's get this thing adjudicated.
I
You're
do
just
not
full of
trust the
Christmas cheer
courts.
today.
I do not trust the courts. I especially do not trust the Supreme Court under the guidance of that wretched woman.
Let's do it.
Hopefully Tom Parker will put us out of our misery on that one. Anyway, Beth, let's talk about forgotten.
That was tough. I liked it.
Well, she is wretched.
She is pretty wretched. I mean, they're making law over there. They're not.
I know. She's owned by the BCA. I don't know why she doesn't have a big sign on her
The
backside.
NASCAR jacket.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about this because we have done extensive reporting on what Robert Bentley and Rebecca Mason and that crew did to Spencer Collier when he was the chief of ALEA. Mm-hmm. We have done extensive reporting on Mary Scott Hunter and this three amigos over at the
Ethics boondoggle.
State Department
of Education
Yeah.
doing to Craig Pouncey, and yet, Beth, neither one of those cases have been settled.
Right. I mean, the legal process is entirely too long as it is, but it looks like Craig Pouncey's moving into mediation.
Yeah.
And Spencer's still just over here treading water. And now they're trying to threaten him and say, we're going to drag this out. We're going to take everything you've got. I mean, the people are paying the legal bills on this, and they don't have cheap attorneys. I mean,
Well, Spencer's moved into mediation, but it's not mediating.
Well, they cut off mediation when he had the wreck, hoping that they would find something wrong there, and there was nothing wrong.
They didn't.
There's some guy named Masters that works over there that heads up the legal side of this fund that pays people that have been wronged by the state. And they say he's like thinking he's going to be a tough guy and actually win here, Jack. So we got a bureaucrat using our money as a lawyer to screw people that have been targeted by the state.
And remember, they're still paying for Bentley's lawyers. We're still paying for them.
I know.
Yeah, the state's paying for Bentley's lawyers. That's good to know.
Well, we paid almost $300,000 in the Pouncey case, and we've not had one
So far.
deposition.
Yeah,
So
that was really, Mary Scott Hunter's lucky she's not being sued for billions of dollars after that deal. I mean, that was a whole setup where they faked a complaint, a fraudulent complaint, and then the Ethics Commission, that joke over there, that whole. I mean, this state has just gone to hell in a handbasket.
Well, I've heard.
And it's Christmas.
I was gonna say, we're just all full of Christmas cheer today. We're just the happiest bunch of elves.
Yeah. I meant to
I
bring
think
a
everybody's
fruit
burned
cake
out.
to the set, but I forgot it.
Well, I tell you what, if we didn't hold these people accountable, we'd be hearing how Bob Riley is an influential Republican and a good guy. And I don't want to ever hear that again.
I don't want to live that long.
No.
Apparently,
no,
they haven't
no.
seen those exposed billboards all over town.
Well, I think the best thing that's happened to us this year is that we're all pretty darn healthy and pretty darn happy, and we got 2 new babies
We got
joining
babies
the family. So I'd say all in all, Santa wasn't too bad.
No,
Jack.
and I hear Rebecca is now the receptionist at the Pimple Popping Palace or whatever.
He actually had a Facebook ad for doing cool sculpting on Facebook.
You got to be mostly naked.
like anybody
to
would
get
want him to
that.
touch
No,
them.
it'd be
Oh,
gross. Anyway,
I don't know where those hands have been.
all right. Well,
That's enough.
all right, Beth, you got a Christmas wish?
Just that everybody's happy and gets a wonderful 2018.
All right, Susan?
Yes, that everything's healthy, that our state can try to find some traction this next year, and that our babies are healthy and our family continues to grow.
Jack, what about you?
Progress and prosperity.
Wow. Mr.
All about
Hoover.
economics.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hoover. For the V family, we wish you a Merry Christmas, and we'll be back for a Happy New Year. You've been watching the V. You watch us because we watch them. Merry Christmas.
Holiday while the merry bells keep ringing. Happy holiday.